Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. Carter McInnis here with Mountaintop Church, and I'm joined by Sam Collier, who we recently had to teach, and we just wanted to sit down for a few minutes and talk some more about your book and some of the themes. I just got done reading it. I love it. Man, it inspired me. It inspired me to really just think about our purpose. So I want to ask you a little bit about it. And in the book, you tell your story, and if you want to hear Sam's story, you can watch our service from this past week.
Yeah.
But talk about this encouragement for those who feel like God has abandoned them, because your story was that you were abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took me forever to realize that. I don't even remember if I wrote about that in the book in terms of the process of that. I think, you write a book, you're just like, what did I say in chapter 1?
Yeah.
But, when I was sitting down with Ashley Wiersma, who I brought on the team to just help me think through some of the ideas, she said, what did it feel like to be abandoned? And I was like, I was abandoned? It didn't even register to me how we sometimes normalize the things that we go through, even the trauma that we go through. We kind of normalize it. And so I think for me, the biggest thing within that, outside of that, was my father who adopted us, who always told us, it's not about the cards you've been dealt, it's about how you play the hand.
Yeah.
And so when I think about this idea of abandonment, all of us in some way have been abandoned by somebody or gone through something. And I think it really, where you decide to look truly will determine what you see. So if you see the glass is half full, it'll be half full. If you see it half empty, it'll be half empty. I think for us, we chose not to focus per se on the abandonment, but on the acceptance.
Yeah.
And both are true at the same time.
Yeah.
But we wanted to live out of this place instead of out of this place. So I think that's, it's really big for, even in this season of COVID-19 and lack and loss that we're all experiencing right now, where we decide to look in this season, I think will determine what we ultimately see and what we eventually will hold, whether that's opportunity or whether we just become a victim of the lack or whatever. I think the people that are experiencing the most growth in this season and the most health in this season are the ones that are choosing not to just focus on the challenges, but also try to find the opportunities.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things you talk about is sacrifice. You talked with us on Sunday about that, your parents' sacrifice. But one thing I love in the book is you just talk about what people, there's this paragraph. It's such a powerful paragraph about so-and-so sacrificed this to accomplish this. And so talk about maybe just the sacrifice of your parents that they went through, and then how you have had to sacrifice to really kind of find your story and God's story.
Man, you read the book.
I read the book. I read the book.
You read the book.
Yeah.
I think I said in the service this past Sunday, or whenever, depending on when people are watching this, that on the other side of sacrifice is the miraculous in many cases.
Yeah.
And so I think, for us, people look at our story, our life. We came out of poverty. We were rescued out of poverty, out of drug addiction, all the types of things, and went on to live a greater story because of two people that decided to lay down, I guess, if you will, their life, their money, all of these things, their time to take care of two kids. And, what's interesting is my dad, when he adopted us, was 50, 52, 53. Now he's 84. And
I'm 43, and my kids are like middle school and up. I got a fifth grader and up.
Yeah.
Cannot imagine having twins at 52, 53.
That's what I'm like, I remember him racing me up the street in like 64, 60, when he was 63.
Yeah.
Like he's running with me up the hill.
Yeah.
And so I think it just speaks to, in the last, I don't want to say last chapter, but it kind of was, because he's 84. Yeah. Kind of in the last season of his life, he adopts these two kids with my mother, and they raise us. But sacrifice. And he just continued to do that over and over and over and over again. Yeah. That eventually led to where we are today. And I think for me, the idea of sacrifice, I had to put down some dreams. Yeah. For God's dream. Me and you often talk about, you wanted to be the Christian Keith Urban, was that?
Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm older than that. Garth Brooks. Yeah.
I wanted to be Christian Usher, right?
Yeah.
And so neither one of us, we settled for ministry. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We didn't quite make it, but God had a different plan. He had a
That's right.
different story. And it was the story that he wanted for us. And I think for me, I thought I was going to be doing music forever. It took up so much of my life. I never thought I would be doing ministry. And then one day God asked me, it was kind of Abraham Isaac moment. Would you sacrifice it on the altar? And I did. I just gave him would you give me your dreams in place for my dreams? And I think that's one of the biggest questions that we all have to ask with our lives is, are we living for our own desires and what we think we may need to be doing? Or are we willing to trade in those desires and those dreams for the dream that God ultimately has for us? That is better than the one that we would have for ourselves because he created us, he wired us for it. So, life just starts to work. But
That's right.
that was, for me, I had to sacrifice my own preferences for God's. And it led to greater.
Yeah. I have a very similar story. I just never, ever wanted to be a preacher. But when God finally just got a hold of my heart, and I was almost like a relinquishing.
Yeah.
Yes, God, I'll do it. And the best word I can come up with is just an overwhelming sense of peace. That God was like, I just wanted you to say it. Now let's go.
Now let's go.
No, it hadn't been easy, but there was a sense of peace. Purpose is a big theme of the book. And this really, finding your story in God's story, and it becomes a greater story, really is about finding your purpose. There's been a million books written about purpose. Tell me what your heart is in this book, why it's different when it comes to purpose. Because I think everybody wants to know, why am I here?
Yeah, I really wanted to write about purpose a lot because I think it's one of the missing components in the church, teaching specifically on purpose in terms of the nuts and the bolts. I think when we hear about purpose a lot, and it's not everybody, it's not every church, but many churches, particularly when we hear about it, it's taught in a very esoteric kind of way.
Yeah.
It's very like this mythical, God blesses everything kind of thing, or God doesn't care what you do. And he doesn't, but he does, but I think for me, I think we all know that there is something for us to do. And whether or not God follows us down the path that we go, I think we all have a sense of that path isn't for me. Mm-hmm. That one seems like it is. Even if it's 5 of them, then, the other 5 aren't, right? And so I think what I wanted to write, I wanted to try to help people with the Rubik's Cube of purpose that we all find ourselves in when we wake up, chasing significance as opposed to success and so on and so forth. When we talk about my life story, I went through a period where I was just confused, mad at the church.
Yeah.
Because I felt like every conference I was going to, there's a ton of Christian conferences. It's COVID-19 now, but.
Yeah. Back in the day when we went to conferences.
Back in the day. I'm not going to make it through this with this. I'm not going to make it through it. But back in the day when we went to conferences, I would hear about purpose and God wanting to do something great with your life. And, God wants to launch you. And you're just like, and you walk away with all these dreams.
Yeah.
And then, and that's what I have. I didn't know how to do any of them. I'm like,
that's good.
But how does this work? And now I'm broke. And I'm this and I'm that, because for many of us, our interpretation of purpose is, well, God gave me the dream. I'm just going to stop everything I'm doing and do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the message, it doesn't come with here's how you make money, and here's how you add up, and here's how you manage your finances. And so for me, I went on a journey of how can I marry, and this is a part of the formula that we crafted. How can we marry passion and provision? How do I marry passion and provision, and then ultimately wrap gifting into it? And we always say when you can get the 3 of those to work together, you discover purpose. Yeah. And we often talk about this idea of surrender, that the greatest thing you could do is become who you already are. So good. Surrender to who God has already created you to be, instead of chasing. And one of the ways you can discover those things is to look for that threefold cord. Yeah. That where your gifting collides with your passion, and that collides with ultimately provision. And just a little quick clarity on that. I think gifting is, you can be good at something and not graced in it. We don't have to go on another thing. That's one.
Yeah.
As it pertains to passion, what breaks your heart?
Yeah.
What is, if you had 1 week to live, what problem would you try to solve?
Yeah.
And then obviously provision. So that's favor, that's finance, that's all these different things. You can
Yeah.
get those three to work together.
Yeah. That's so good. I've got a sign on my office that I got from Chip and Joanna Gaines, Magnolia, that says, "The world needs who you were made to be."
Woo.
But that's pretty good. And I mean, my kind of spiritual version of that is the world needs who God made you to be. And what I find is so many people are almost afraid to be themselves.
Woo.
Like this, I love what you said, like how do you say it? The best person
The best thing you could do is to become who you already
to
are.
become who you already are. Boy, there's a lot of us playing a game.
Yeah.
We're somebody else on social media. People are in a job that is not their passion. That's good. So let me turn a corner just a little bit and just talk for just a moment, because I think as a church at Mountaintop, one of the things we feel like is our purpose and a passion is to be a bridge in racial healing.
Yeah.
We're in Birmingham. We don't think that's by accident. We're a diverse church. We don't think that's by accident. And this has been our heart for a long time, and we're trying to live into that. And it's a tense world to do that in. What encouragement would you give, maybe to the people of Mountaintop or anybody trying to stand in the gap to create conversation around racial healing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see it in two different categories. I think there are people, I think ultimately all of us are called to be one.
Yeah.
To live as one.
Right.
I think that's a calling for everyone. I also think there are individuals that are out there that are called specifically to the work of racial reconciliation as well. And I would be very leery not to confuse the two.
Yeah.
Because there are many of us that try to jump into the work of racial reconciliation, but we aren't wired to do it, and we get fatigued, and we jump out, and we get angry, and we deactivate our social media account, right? It's like, I'm done, I'm out of here, right? And I think that's because many of us confuse the ultimate calling of us pursuing unity for the work of reconciliation, which requires patience and grace and understanding and long suffering. Yeah. That is, I mean, it's not an easy work to do, sitting across from someone who's different than you and hearing something that you've never agreed with and having to, so on and so forth. That's difficult on both sides to do. And so I would really ask the question, are you called to the work? Yeah. And if not, go and support someone who is called to the work. Yeah. That maybe that is even some of your work. Yeah. Is supporting people that are called to the work. People like Latasha Morrison and Bernice King and so many, the King Center and so many others. There's a book called White Fragility that is written by, it's actually a white woman who wrote it. I think she went to Harvard. I can't remember. Yeah. But support people like, she's called to the work to help us kind of bridge the gap. So that's the first thing I would say. I think the second thing, when we talk about pursuing unity, I do think one of the traits that all Christians should start to have is the ability to accept people regardless of their beliefs. Yeah. That's a very difficult thing to do. Accept.
It sounds like Jesus.
Right?
That sounds like Jesus. Like, just,
it's true.
Hey, just come follow me.
Hey, just
or can I come to your house and have dinner?
Can I just come and, no matter what you believe or where you're at or where you come from, can you love in spite of a belief? And that looks like on a very practical level, because here's where we lose people in the practicality. It looks like I'm sitting across the table from you and you say something I vehemently disagree with, and I don't freak out. Right. That's hard to do. Yep. People, they get, especially when it's, you're talking about Jesus isn't real. What? It's just, it becomes this thing. Yeah. The Republican Party is this, or the Democratic Party is this, or, this, affirmative action this, or da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. Can we at least learn to love across, our differences? And I think that's very important because somebody's going, well, is that it? I mean, what's next? Well,
Yeah.
if you can learn how to at least sit in a conversation and not be triggered all the time by people's differences or disagreements, it'll give you the ability to have patience and understand, and that will lead to understanding for both sides. But I think we keep losing people in the beginning.
Yeah.
They try to have these conversations, and then they get into the conversation about somebody that believes something different than them, and they freak out. They're not empathetic, and it gets wild.
So I read before I preached the sermon on race last week. I was like, I gotta read up. I read Under Our Skin by Benjamin Watson. It's good. So Ben, straight from a gospel narrative. I mean, he is a deeply committed follower of Jesus. And then I read White Fragility, which is not written from a spiritual perspective at all.
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with everything in the book. But like, it was okay. Like, it helped me see, like, I wonder what, and here's what I'm learning on race is that we kind of, this is our tendency in race. My experience is different than the white guy's experience next to me, and different from the white woman's experience next to me, and different from the white woman's next to her. And so everyone's experience is a little different. So the only way is around relationship to go, hey, how did you come to that conclusion? Why do you think that way? What was in your experience made you think that, and I think differently about this? What can we learn from each other's experience? And but we'd be a better place if we could do that.
100%.
And I mean, as a church, our heart is the gospel, and you preached on the Good Samaritan. We are about reaching across. Last week I talked about that we love because he first loved us. So we love because of that. Okay, I have one more question from the book.
Okay.
And then we'll be done. You lost or broke a tooth at IHOP?
I'm not doing.
This happened because that just little line was in the book, and that was it. We didn't hear the story of like how you lose a tooth at IHOP.
I can't believe he talked about that. Is in the book.
It's in the book, and that's all it says.
This is what he's been doing to me all day long. He's been asking me. I lost a tooth. Did I tell the whole?
The book just says, like, it kind of goes along this kind of hard season, and it was like this happened and this happened, and then I lost a tooth at IHOP, and I'm like, whoa. What is the story of losing a tooth at IHOP? How do you lose a tooth on pancakes?
All right, I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
I've never told this story publicly.
Okay, this is exclusive content.
I had a crown. You get a crown, and they put it over a tooth, and I got it. I was in a record deal. Remember we talked about Christian Usher? Yeah. I was in a record deal, distribution through Universal, but it was an independent deal, meaning Universal was the parent company, but there was an independent organization underneath, owned by a doctor and a dentist. Yeah. And they did some dental work on me, and they hadn't quite finished the job. Yeah. And I was at IHOP, and I bit into a ham, egg and cheese toasted sandwich. Yeah. And after I came down, all I heard was, in the plate. And I'm across the table from my manager. It's like one of the tooth on this side. So it's not, but it's, and he said, let me see. I said, he said, let me see. I said, no, I picked the tooth up. We went to the restroom, but he was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I lost the tooth.
So you lost the tooth?
In IHOP.
It's looking good now, I see.
It's good.
All right. Hey, man, thanks so much.
Listen, you're the man.
It's been good.
I want to say this. Mountaintop people and people watching, I love this man. And what you're doing out here in Alabama is, you're for Birmingham, but it's serious. I believe the Lord is on this, and big things are coming out of this. And we're in a season of pandemic, but I think even within it, he's working. But on the other side of this church is going to continue to shape this city and shake this city. And
Thanks so much, Sam.
Stay involved, y'all. Invite your friends.
All right. Let's do it. Thanks, guys.